Yeah.
Let's start a new religion. Wanna?
Why?
Because it's fun. And my girlfriend used to have to do it in Sunday school all the time.
How do you start a new religion?
I'm not exactly sure about all the paperwork involved, but you gotta start with the rules.
Like what?
Like
Rules?
no spitting.
Good. I never spit.
You shouldn't be spitting. You gotta spend eternity in the Barry Manilow chamber. Go the Manilow chamber.
I write the songs that make the whole world sing.
Hey, listen up. I haven't spit. Why are you singing Manilow? I believe that for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that the children are the future, and if you let them lead the way, you got to, because you got to teach them.
We've all grown up hearing
Teach 'em
about the
well.
Bible and heaven and God, but do we really know why we believe what we believe?
I believe that the Beatles will reunite. I believe that there will be some huge mega tour soon with like the Beatles and...
Kids have basic questions about their beliefs. We thought we'd get some of those questions out on the table right now for discussion.
I believe that non-dairy cheese is in fact not really cheese.
I have one main question. Like, everybody says that God made us, but I've always wanted to know who made him.
Like, I think that's kind of weird. It's a mystery.
How can you believe in something you can't see?
I want to know if he's like a spirit or if he's supposed to have like a human form.
Why doesn't he talk? Why doesn't God just say, you know, your name and just talk to you?
There are some things in the Bible that I don't really understand what they mean.
I've been struggling with that a lot lately. Is there a God? Is there a Jesus?
How do you know what was created and how do you know what was evolved and where did it start?
I want to know if we actually get to like look down on people when we're in heaven and see what they're doing.
When you die, I wonder how heaven is going to be.
So many different religions and so many different things out there. Which one is the right one?
Those are good questions, Jeremy. Why don't you go ahead, pick one and answer it.
Me?
Oh, sure, go
No,
ahead.
I couldn't.
Oh, now, Jeremy,
No,
you are
I-
creative,
oh,
you are
no,
brilliant, you
no.
are a great communicator. Do your stuff.
There are many deep and hard questions. Ethical, deep questions full of depth, and because they're so depthy. What do you think?
I think God is a really cool guy who's there and he's always listening.
He's so big that he's everywhere at once.
Like sort of a grandfather type, sitting on a big gold throne and
Surrounded by white and by gold. You know, he can do anything to you. He can like kill you and snap of his fingers.
I think he is something like magical or big or powerful.
He's the captain of everything.
God is Biff. I mean, God is the guy you want to be around.
God to me is goodness.
He's just pure 200% love.
God looks like a man with a beard, brown hair, robe on, and sandals.
I was about 10 or 11 years old when our family got the news that my dad was ill. He set us down and told us that that the doctors had diagnosed him with chronic leukemia, which is a form of leukemia that is not deadly. What we rode on for 6 years was the faith that my father was going to be healed someday. He was going to have a great testimony in the church. You know, people would see the miracle-working powers of God. In my dad's eyes, he looked very scared. He wouldn't tell you about it, but you could tell he was scared. His chronic symptoms had turned acute, which is the deadly phase of leukemia. I remember the last time I was at the hospital. We've prayed for God to save him. God's going to save him. We have faith, you know. That's my whole mindset. Then my mom comes over to me. She said that Dad has suffered a severe amount of brain damage. And I wanted to get out of there. I just went out on the circle where my dad and I used to walk all the time. And I just went into this little dark spot off in the field. And I fell down and I cried for probably an hour and a half. I'd say lots of prayers. God, this is what I need. Can you make this happen? Can you make that happen? And I didn't see anything happening, especially with my dad's death. And I also had to deal with a lot of other questions that was going through my mind. Why do I believe in what I believe in? Let me tell you, I've never felt so close to hell, I think, in my entire life. And simply because I just lost all contact with Jesus. I've never felt so empty before in my life. Things never looked so hopeless, like I had no future. What was the point of living anymore, you know? I really don't understand how anybody without some kind of God figure in their life can honestly say that life fulfills them. I lived that way for a year, and there was no point to life.
I really appreciate Matt sharing that with us because, well, like I've said before, my dad died in October, and if it wasn't for the faith that my mom and I had in Jesus Christ, we never would have gotten through it. And it's just, you got to know where your foundation is.
Right. You know, Jeremy, you have to play the goofy guy a lot in our videos, and you do it very well, don't get me wrong, but there is a warm and touching side of you that most of these people won't get to see.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, let's bring in the big what do we call him? The expert. He's an expert.
Bill Myers?
Bill Myers.
You know that he has written over 30 books for teenagers, including that very popular fiction series called Forbidden Doors?
I do know that. Okay, Bill, we got loads of questions. Do you have any answers?
There's no doubt you probably got some questions. Questions you've wondered about or questions that your friends have challenged you with. So we thought for this show it would be cool to let you ask some of those questions and then we'll do our best to come up with some answers. Okay? So, the first question is...
Isn't Christianity something we can't prove? Don't you just take it in on faith?
You know, when you think about it, just about everything in our lives involves a certain amount of faith. When you step onto that elevator and press that button, you have faith that it's going to take you to the floor number you pushed. You don't necessarily know how it works, but you trust that it will. I mean, there are things in life that we can't totally explain, and yet we trust that they're true. Science calls these things reasonable assumptions. Now, some people think that Christianity is something you just close your eyes and take a blind leap of faith into, like you have to commit mental suicide or something. You know, and then they just go with it. But that's not true. You need to turn on your brain and examine Christianity, like we're doing today. And as you look at it honestly, you'll find it does make sense. Christianity isn't a blind leap of faith. It's more like a tiny step. Next question.
Isn't the idea of God just something that people made up?
Now, throughout history, people have made up tales to explain things they didn't understand. You know, I mean, the Greeks thought the world was being carried around on the shoulders of some incredible Hulk named Atlas. Anyway, no scientist or scholar has ever been able to disprove the idea of God. In fact, many scientists and archaeologists who have looked at the evidence trying to discredit Christianity end up becoming Christians themselves.
Hasn't science proven that God didn't create the world, that we just evolved?
I mean, as you look at our complicated universe, our planet, even our own bodies, is it reasonable to think that these things just happened? I mean, that they just came together by chance? Or that some intelligent being decided to put them together that way? More scientists are realizing it takes a blind leap of faith to say that there is not a God.
Actually, the evidence which is coming forth today is really showing us that there is an inherent design, not just to man, to other living things, but the universe as a whole, to suggest that in no way could we simply be the result of random processes, mutation, natural selection.
But what about the Big Bang Theory?
There have been a lot of theories about the beginning of the world. But even if the Big Bang is true, what caused the Big Bang? What caused the gases? Where did they come from? And just recently everything's gone crazy. Thanks to the Hubble telescope, astrophysicists now believe the universe is billions of years younger than when they taught us back in school just a couple years ago. Meanwhile, the mathematicians and microbiologists are screaming their heads off. They're saying there's no way DNA and all those amino acids could come together by random chance, even if they had those extra billion years, that there had to be someone to jumpstart it all. Now, all these guys like to talk about when and how the world was created, but most of them, well, they avoid the important question of who created the universe. I mean, when you investigate a murder, you don't just look at how or when did these things take place or this crime take place. You ultimately have to ask yourself, who done it?
Our universe has all sorts of constants or specifications that, if they were not exactly correct, would yield a universe in which we couldn't live. One example of that would be the fact that there is a gravitational constant and an electromagnetic force constant. And if the ratio of these two numbers isn't exactly right, to within one part in a number that's so big that it has 40 zeros after it, then our universe wouldn't be right.
What are you doing?
Oh, just reading something.
What are you reading? A letter from a friend?
You could say that, yeah.
A letter from a special friend?
Yes, very special.
Is this person smart?
Yes, smart.
Is this person creative?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Is this person down to earth?
That could be true too, but I think of him more as heavenly. Dear Polly, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
The Bible is kind of like your life story. You've got things in there that relate to you.
There's one chapter, I just couldn't put it down. I was reading it, and some of this stuff was so real life and something that would just be made into a movie in this day.
There's so much hate and anger and pain that's going on everywhere. And the Bible is so pure.
A lot of the Bible, though, isn't actually enjoyable, and when you finally do find the time to sit down and read, it's hard to keep your eyes fixed on the page because it's like so boring.
It's kind of hard for me to grasp.
Just try and get in the habit, but it doesn't seem to work out all the time.
Well, I read the Bible every night just about, at least about 3 times a week.
I read the Bible when I go to church, like probably once a week.
But it's hard to understand. It seems like a different language, sort of. It's so neat. It's like our direction manual to living life.
You believe it, but you really don't know if it's true or not.
But how do we know everything in the Bible is true? Isn't it full of mistakes?
You know, detailed stories of prophets and kings have been recorded in the books of the Bible. But in the Middle East, archaeologists are now uncovering the historical truth of those stories. For example, in Israel they have unearthed a 9th century BC stone inscription bearing the name of David, the ancient king who was a young man who killed the giant Goliath. Remember David and Goliath? But this is just one example of physical proof beyond the pages of the Bible. See, not only is the Bible true, but down through the centuries, it's remained accurate. In 1947, ancient jars were discovered by a goat herdman in caves of the Valley of the Dead Sea. You know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, you've heard of those. They contain fragments of almost every book in the Old Testament. And when compared to our own modern-day Greek and Hebrew text, there were only minor spelling or style differences, nothing that changed the meaning, and that is over 2,000 years old. Every time archaeologists find artifacts like the Dead Sea Scrolls or writings about David, they reassure us of the truth and the accuracy of the Bible.
In the late 1800s, Sir William Ramsay set out to disprove the book of Acts. And yet after investigating all of the events and places that are described in that book, he found that Dr. Luke, its author, was unsurpassed among all writers of history.
But what about those crazy stories about Jesus walking on water and the Red Sea parting for the Israelites? Can miracles really happen?
Of course I believe in miracles. I mean, how else could you explain non-fat cookies? No, but seriously, if they happened every day, you wouldn't call them miracles, would you? Now, if you believed in a God who created a universe out of nothing, is it that hard to believe that he could create a pathway through the sea when he wanted to? And if you believe in a God who wants a relationship with the people he's made, it's not that hard to trust that he would inspire people to write down his messages for all mankind. And when you get right down to it, that's all the Bible is. God talking to mankind.
Some of my friends, they all think that heaven is going to be really boring, like it's some big shuffleboard tournament or something, and we're all going to have to sit around and watch PBS specials about the importance of plankton and where it fits in the ecosystem and
That
everything
sounds more like the
that.
other room we were talking about.
You mean the Manilow Chamber?
I think it's just this peaceful place where there's not going to be any problems.
You don't have anything to worry about.
White clouds and golden gates.
Everybody's going to be happy up there. There's going to be no violence like there is down here.
We can see our relatives that have died in the past.
Mainly it's happiness.
Earth without sins and without gravity.
When you fell and scraped your knee, it wouldn't hurt a bit.
I can't answer that question. I really don't know.
So there's a minister, and he's giving his sermon, and at the end of it, he wraps it all up, and he says to everybody out there, he goes, okay, I want you to raise your hands and say amen if you want to go to heaven. And everybody in the church does it, except for this one guy sitting in the front row. And he goes, do you not want to go to heaven when you die? And the man says, oh, when I die. Oh, I thought you were getting a bus together to go right now.
That's good.
Okay, we'll try a different approach. Oh, when I die. I thought you were getting a bus together to go right now.
It's very funny.
Are you patronizing me?
I think the people that truly believe in God and, you know, have Him in His heart and just follow Him will be able to go to heaven.
Anybody who accepts Jesus Christ into their heart.
I mean, I don't think that people that go get drunk, have sex every night, different people, I don't think that they're going to get in heaven, but I'm not the judge of that.
Most people get to go to heaven, even if they mess up and maybe break a couple laws.
You'll find out one day, but I don't think anybody knows.
Well, I think that it's anyone that actually thinks about Jesus or heaven in their life.
I think anybody who believes in God gets to go to heaven.
I don't believe in hell. People who have asked God for forgiveness and ask Him to wash away all their sins that they had done before.
46% of Americans expect to spend eternity in heaven.
Okay, and now the question we've all been waiting for. Do dogs go to heaven? Phew, got me. The Bible does talk about God's relationship, though, with His whole creation. So maybe He does have plans for dogs and antelopes and spiders. Ooh, spiders in heaven? See, the Bible isn't too clear on those plans, but it is clear on God's plans for us. Those who know Jesus are going to heaven, for sure. And I got to tell you something, we're going to have a blast there. It is the party none of us want to miss.
Isn't heaven going to be boring? What are we going to do all day?
Walk on streets of gold, praise God all day, hang out with your friends, play these wild seven-dimensional video games? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, if you're thinking of heaven as some sort of non-stop church service, no wonder you're afraid it might be boring. And let's face it, even the best church services get a little boring after 7 or 8 days. But I'll tell you this, the Bible shows heaven as a place of joy, of over-the-top happiness. No sickness, no sorrow, and believe me, heaven is going to be #1 on everybody's all-time top 10 list. That you can take to the bank.
I heard Jesus didn't even exist. Isn't it just some story that people made up to keep people in line?
You know, that's simply not true. Did you know we have more historical evidence for Jesus than we have for George Washington? We have more letters, more manuscripts, more personal accounts written by people who saw him and knew him, not only from the Bible, but also from other sources.
We have people like Tacitus, who's writing in his annals about Christus, about Christ and his followers. Pliny the Younger writing to Trajan, asking him about what to do with this new cult, how to punish its believers. So there are non-believers who mention Christ, that he was a real person of history.
As I see it, Jesus was a great teacher, but not God. He was just a good man.
Yeah, you probably heard that one before, huh? But you know, what kind of person would say all that sort of stuff? What type of person would say that he was the promised Messiah sent to deliver his people? What type of person would claim to be God?
Well, C.S. Lewis said this about who Jesus claimed to be. He said, "You can shut him up as a fool and spit at him and call him a demon, but let us not come up with any patronizing nonsense about him just being a great human teacher. He did not leave that open to us." See, in the scriptures, Jesus clearly claimed to be God, not just a great moral teacher. In John chapter 10, he said, I and the Father are one. And at that point, the Jews picked up stones to stone him. Well, why was that? Simply because the Jews knew what his claim was all about, that he was claiming divinity, and they called it blasphemy. The Jews said, for a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy, because you being a man, make yourself out to be God. So the choice is with us. Will we accept his claim to be God and then choose to make him Lord of our lives, or reject that claim?
I learned that I can't come to God, but that God comes to me, and it's me who has to let him in. And that Jesus Christ deals with you where you are. The miracle that I thought was going to happen never happened. And I believe God can work those miracles, but I think the most important thing is just learn how to love God. Learn how to be honest with him and yourself, and don't try to make yourself more than you are. I think that's what my dad tried to teach me most. And I'm glad that part of him is still with me.
When I got on to be in the 7th grade, you know, I got affiliated with a gang. It didn't seem, you know, bad to me because that was my life. That was how we lived, running from the police because you're doing things you're not supposed to do. If I told a young guy to go out and sell drugs for me, he would. One day, you know, I had a real close friend. He got shot, and he was close to me. And I mean, it kind of like woke me up. You know, it told me, hey man, one day this could be you. I started hanging around athletes instead of hanging around drug dealers and gangbangers. I started, you know, even reading my Bible. And I got to Thomas Jefferson High School and got affiliated with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which just, it worked a miracle in my life. It gave me a sense that everything is gonna be all right if you just put your cares in God's hands. And God just started turning that leadership that I had in a bad way, he turned it into good things. I started being a leader in the classroom. I started being a leader on the field. I started being a leader on the basketball court, you know, and it was exciting to me. My first time making the A honor roll, you know, it felt real good to me, you know, and so God just started telling me all these things, you know, this is what I have in store for you. You know, this is what can really happen if you set your mind to it. And who would think that the president of the senior class was once a gang-banging leader, you know? They would never know that, you know, but it was all in God's plan. I mean, he didn't keep those things on my back. You know, what I did each and every day from now on is what will affect my future. I'm looking at one of the biggest blessings of my life, you know, a full scholarship to West Point Military Academy. And, you know, I thank God that I'm standing firm on my beliefs. And nothing in this world could turn me away from Jesus Christ, because I know that he died on the cross for me and my sins, and he's just done so much for me in my life. I can never repay him enough for shedding blood on the cross. But I guarantee you one thing, I never stop trying, never.
It's that type of belief. It's that simple act of faith in Jesus Christ as God's Son that revolutionized history nearly 2,000 years ago. And the exciting news is that in today's world full of skeptics, full of teachers, full of self-help religions, that hundreds of millions of people just like you, just like me, have found meaning and happiness through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
You know, I find it reassuring to hear that there are reasons to believe what we believe, you know? It's not just believe, okay? Just do it. It reassures me anyway.
It's like my car.
What?
It's like Christianity is like my car.
Christianity is not like your car.
No, it is like
Jeremy.
my car. Okay, watch. I get in my car, close the door, turn on the key, and have faith that it'll go.
Jeremy, Christianity is not like your car.
Yeah, well, you just got to give it a minute.
No, see, Christianity works. Yeah.
Well,
that's the difference. Okay.
It works.
Yeah, I bet.
Told you to trust me.
Okay, you can get out.
Never want to trust me. All right, I'll see you later.
Well,
have fun.
Jeremy.
Bye.
It's hot out here. Jeremy. He left me. You know he'll never come back.